we're just going to go ahead and continue from where we left off. So now that we have this drop down working, which is importing all of these names here, now what I want to do is go ahead and get all these stats to come into our spreadsheet. So what I'm going to do is go over to this data import tab that we have. And remember in the last video how we specifically named this one section that does not include the identifier as projection 18, I believe. Let's see. Yep. So what we're going to do, since we're going to see what kind of stats we're actually importing, I think it's best to just go from team position and then copy and paste this stuff over. So I'm going to copy and paste this stuff over right here. We're just going to paste it right there. And then what I like to do is when you're looking at the table, you want to know what column number you're referring to for the VLookup. I'll explain a little bit further then. So I'm looking here, and relative to our whole table, this is going to be the second one, third, fourth, fifth, etc. So what we're going to do up here is this is going to be the second, third, fourth, fifth, and I'm just going to copy this across all the way to here. Let's make sure that's correct. Yep, perfect. Actually, you know what? I don't want the team. There's no point in having the team because we already have it here. That's a bit redundant. So I'm just going to delete this out. So we're actually starting at the third position. All right, so now what we're going to do is do the actual VLookup function. And there's a little trick that involves using these numbers up here that makes it a lot easier for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to type in VLookup and hit it. So what it's asking for first is the lookup value. So that is the actual player's name. So we're going to go ahead and click the player's name, and then we're going to type a comma, and that's going to move to the table array. So now this is either some sort of table or whatever you named a specific range. So what we're going to do is type in PROJ18 because that is our range. And next it's going to ask for the column number, and that's why I said this was important. So what we can do, instead of having to go back and manually type in each one, we can click up here, and then that's going to automatically make it whatever that number is, which corresponds to that column number. So I'm going to type a column or a comma and then type in 0. You just type in 0 almost for everything unless you're like ranking stuff and you want it in descending versus ascending. Then we're going to close the parentheses, and let's see if we should do what might be smart to do for this referring to these numbers up top is go ahead and throw in a $sign for that 2, because what that will do is lock in that height so that even when we move it down and when we move it over, it still stays in this row when it's referring to what column. All right, perfect. So I just didn't include, I had an extra parentheses at the very end. All right, so now we have this, and let's go ahead and see what happens when we drag it across. So the problem here, you get the NA, and the reason for that is when you're transferring this over, this B4 wasn't locked in. So what you got to do to fix this issue, let's pull these back, is lock in the B. You don't want to lock in the 4, because if you lock in the 4, then it won't work when you drag it down. So this is locking column B, but it's not locking what row it is. So we're going to go ahead and hit enter, and then we'll drag this across one more time. And as you can see, it pulls everything down corresponding to whatever column it's referring to. So now that we have it all the way across the row, let's see if it works dragging it down. And it does perfectly. One thing I like to add in, you see how you get these NA values, it just kind of drives me nuts whenever those are in there, is to go and add an if error. That means if there's an NA or a reference or something that's wrong with the formula where it's not able to pull in data, you type a comma, and then you can put whatever you want there. You could put 0 if you wanted a 0. I like to do quotations with nothing in between. And now I just have to drag this across and then down one more time. And as you can see, now this is all gone. One other thing that kind of bothers me is how these are all lowercase. Positions I feel like should just be uppercase. So the way to fix that is we can go ahead and type in this formula upper. And we do parentheses around the VLookup, and then we're going to close the parentheses around the VLookup because we only want it to apply to the VLookup, not to anything else that's there. All right, and then we're going to pull this all the way down, And then as you can see, everything's capital. And then all this other data is being pulled in. And let's make sure that when we switch teams, it's still working correctly. So let's go to Chicago. Bang, everything's there. So in the next video, I'm going to show you kind of how to jazz up the table, make it look a little bit better, more organized, and color schemes and some conditional formatting.